Hello, Avram.
Hey.
How are you?
All right. So I think a good thing to talk about, although it's kind of funny because you have Google Stadia as a topic, is we could talk about the major change in GeForce Now.
Okay.
Now, I haven't gotten to test it yet, and eventually I will get to test it, but the announcement was made. And it's interesting also because if you want to talk about bandwidth, right? Because there's a lot of bandwidth. There's a lot of bandwidth being used. Are you
Okay.
familiar with the GeForce Now announcement?
Not at all.
Okay, they announced a new 3080 tier on Thursday,
Oh, yeah?
and some other changes to the service to try to get more people signing up. It gives
I
you another way to get in this difficult market. It gives you a way to get another way to get access to an RTX 3080,
Right.
so to
Question.
speak.
Is my
Yeah.
audio and video in sync or out of sync? If I
Look.
talk, does it look like I'm talking or do I look out of sync?
I don't know. Seem
Okay.
okay.
That's good enough for me. With the new cameras, I was having some sync issues, and I feel like I may have made some changes, and I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I put a 110 millisecond delay on the audio to try and sync everything up. And so now what I see of myself is wrong. So I just wanted to make sure. I was pretty sure it was good, though. Anyway, yeah, that sounds like a fine topic. Who are you? You're Avram. There we go. Perfect. Excellent. Yeah, that sounds good. I get rid of this. Get rid of this. I didn't hit this button yet. Okay. Obviously, based on that comment, that means you've seen the other topics.
Yep.
Great. Put things into place over here. All right. Hello, live viewers. We're getting ready to get started here in just a second. There's something that is in my view that is going to drive me crazy, and I don't know what it is. I occasionally see what looks like a single cobweb strand over my mic cable. So if I look like I'm reaching for my microphone, I'm not having a stroke or anything. All right. Are you still working? Yes, okay. You were like crazy still.
Oh.
I thought the video had frozen. All right. I'm going to hit record over here. I'm going to hit start over here. And I am ready. Let's do this. This week, chips are still in flux. Google Stadia is getting into AT&T, and Google Search is out at Brave Browser. It's Monday, October 25th, 2021, and this is episode 607 of F5 Live Refreshing Technology, a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat, through a podcatcher like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn, or a myriad of other options, through our live stream platforms. livestream.com, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, or of course on our website, PLUGHITZlive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are two ways that you can do that. The first is, normally, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, you can go to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us in the studio, give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them, or you can always subscribe at plughitzlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows, including F5 Live, The Piltch Point, PLUGHITZ Live Presents, and a whole lot more. And of course, you can find all the ways to watch, listen, and follow along. All right, well, this is hopefully our last off night, and next week we'll be back to Sundays. Roboticon is over. Opa! We had a great October.
Yay!
It's been such a long October. Oh my goodness, I'm glad it's over, and not. You know what I mean? Because it's a lot of fun, and we definitely miss it when it's over. But ooh, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, there's the things that are worth doing are always a lot of work, right? Like for me, that's usually CES and Computex trade shows and things like that, which we didn't really have in earnest last year. We had an all virtual CES. This year, they say we're going to have an in-person one. It looks like we're going to have an in-person one, but probably to the level that it was in 2020 or 2019.
Sure.
So I guess we'll see. But yeah, all the important things are, everything in the things that are the most satisfying in life are those you have to work for.
Absolutely. And that's what Roboticon is for us. It's just like CES. It is, and this year it was even weirder because we distributed it across 4 weekends instead of getting it all done in 72 hours. But that's okay. Speaking of CES, that's coming up in way too soon. We made a little bit of a tease announcement on GNC Week in Review last night, and we'll give a little bit more here. The TPN broadcast is getting kicked up a notch. We're doing more. It's going to look better. It's going to look smoother. We've got a lot of new graphics and some physical stuff that's coming. We're very excited about that. That's the current plan. Hopefully everything will pan out. We've also got, and Avram and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, we still don't have names for the tiers yet, but we have something that's coming just in time for CES, where if you subscribe, you'll be able to get all of the interviews as they publish, or as they're done editing, not as they publish. So we publish 3 every single day, but we do like a push of 30 or 40 at a time into our YouTube queue. And so those of you who subscribe, it'll be available as part of that queue. Very exciting. We'll have a lot more details once we decide exactly what the names are going to be. We're currently between... Okay, let's get some audience feedback. We are currently between going with like USB Mini, Micro, and C, and red shirt, blue shirt, yellow shirt. Those are our two main name categories as of right now. So, audience, give us some feedback. If you've got other ideas too for 3 tiers, let us know. I know we've been thinking about it pretty hard.
The problem with a couple of these though is that they're not all like it's small, medium, large, right? It's right. Good. So not 100% obvious, or maybe they are. I don't know. It's like yellow shirt definitely better than blue shirt. I guess so, right? Because your command,
right,
versus science officer. And red shirt we definitely know is the bottom, but I don't know who would pay to be a red shirt. So that.
Well, that's the free tier.
Even
so
your bottom has to be. Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is why that one was funny.
Better.
That's why that one was funny.
Yes.
Because the red shirts are the free ones.
That's fair. Because the Micro Mini, and even though I'm kind of a proponent of USB types, the you could argue that mini and micro are about equivalent to each other, except that nobody
Yeah.
uses mini very much. So you
You
have
could
to think
do
about it a little bit too much.
you could do B, micro, and C, but yeah,
But
I agree.
again,
That one's been difficult.
we're we're being subjective about the fact that we think that like B is
Right.
the worst and whatever, but
Right. Right.
on a purely objective scale, they're not necessarily one that much worse than the other, although
Right.
C is almost certainly the top.
Right.
So,
Because
um,
it's not the third try every time.
yes. So,
All right, USB
yeah,
C.
the shirt one is pretty is 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 pretty good because it, um, you know, because it's obvious and everybody
Mm.
knows what that means.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so
for sure.
that seemed
And so if the audience has other ideas, or you want to throw your weight behind one of the existing ones, let us know. There's other stuff coming to the tiers, like we're going to start doing um, unplugged again, and we're going to do some of that back behind some of the paywall. But we got a bunch of new stuff coming. Very excited about that. Anyway, that was a longer intro than usual, Avram. How have you been this week? It's only been 6 days
all right.
since we did Tuesday last
Yeah,
week.
not bad, not bad. Decent, got a lot of. I mean, well, last week we talked about a lot of product launches.
Mm-hmm.
We had one more product launch that I'm talking about. I'll be talking about later. So, and who knows, there may be more coming before long. So, it's getting into the busiest part of my year soon,
Yeah.
because not only do we have all these new products coming out, but we have but we also have a the holiday season coming up, which is a big deal for us because we have to do a lot of work around the holiday sales and helping people find them and things like that. So yeah, this is the hardest working part of the time of the year. Oh, by the way, speaking of weird announcements, one that I don't think had happened yet, that wasn't going to be in my Piltch point today, but I just thought I'd mention because this sounds like one of our topics. Razer's Zephyr came out, is available now to buy.
That's the mask.
Their connected mask. Yes.
I saw that.
So yes,
$99.
That seems like a good deal to me. I really thought about trying one. My colleague,
I'm not gonna lie, I have as well.
My colleague has. Well, I may be able to bring one on the show one of these days. They offered us one to test. Trying to pull rank as the boss, I let my colleague Andrew take it to review because I didn't want to be like, yeah, I want to play with it. You got to be
sure.
Can't be selfish. So he's gonna test it out. Several other people have already gotten them, not at other publications, and it seems to be kind of a mixed feelings about it. My friend who is at Tech Radar said that it's very noisy with the fans inside.
Oh.
And there's, to me, the most question which we cannot answer, rather we're not in a good position. I don't say no one can answer, but we are not in a good position to answer, is whether how it works, how efficient it is from a safety perspective. They do claim to have N95 style filters on it, but they didn't really make claims about the they're calling it an air purifier.
Okay.
Which obviously I don't think anybody would buy a mask just to have pure air or avoid pollen. Like, yeah, I know there are people with allergies, but the reason people buy a $99 mask or any mask in 2021 is because they're concerned about about germs. So, we that's something that we don't have any good like benchmark to test. Um,
Right.
so we don't we don't know that one for sure, and it hasn't been through any kind of, they're not making any claims about FDA approving it or anything like that. So I don't know, but it looks really cool, and
That it does.
your mouth your mouth is visible, which solves a major problem that a lot of people have with masks, where they're you can't see their lips. So
Right.
I don't know. I will be curious to try it. I think after he's done writing a review of it, I will find some way to disinfect it and borrow it to see how it is. Because my number one technological beef with masks is that I would love to have more fresh air coming in. So like, these have two fans in them. So if you have,
Right.
fans blowing air in, it could be theoretically more comfortable than wearing a non-powered mask.
Yeah, we had an interesting mask company on at CES 2020, which was, I mean, it was very ironically timed. Um, I don't think they had any advanced knowledge of what was coming to the world. Um, but it was it was the same kind of thing, except it was completely open air, and it had this like air powered mesh thing. I can't give a whole lot of information on it. Maybe it wasn't 2020. Maybe it was 2021, but I seem to remember having it in my hand. So that would, if
There
you if you can't tell,
there
I'm
are
looking
other
at 2020. Oh,
there
there it
are
is.
other
It's called the
smart
Atmos.
masks out. Oh, I've seen it. The Atmos, right?
Yeah,
Um,
it's wild looking.
the there's, I mean, so there. Oh yes, yeah. So my, again, my concern with all of these is like some of them look really cool,
Mm-hmm.
and I just want to know that they perform well. And I think a lot of them want to make a claim because that puts them into some kind of liability, right?
Uh huh.
Um, so they don't want to make a claim. Like another one that fascinates me that I would love to try is there's something called the microclimate air, which looks like a space helmet,
Okay.
and it it goes over your entire head. It's not a mask, it's a helmet, and the
Okay.
front is all like glass, and um, it kind of tightens around your neck so it doesn't let air in this way, and it has something like, it has two fans, and it has a bunch of HEPA filters on it, and you whole face is visible because you know but it can be quite loud. So yeah,
That's
see, unclean air, right?
yeah. That's our interview from 2020. That's the Atmos.
Yeah. So, look, I mean, we could talk about this ad infinitum, but Matt, I know that they're somewhat controversial subjects. Some people don't like them, but as an industry, masks aren't going anywhere. People will be wearing masks for a long time to come. Even if we said tomorrow that the situation with COVID was much more than it is today, um, there will be people who say,
Yeah.
wow, there's a lot of germs out there in public. I think I'm going to wear masks when I go to the supermarket or whatever. And so, there's a market for, um, there's going to be a market for
Yeah.
this. I can
Yeah.
tell
For sure.
you, having been to Taiwan so many times
Yeah. I was gonna say that.
before COVID, like a nice percentage of the people were wearing masks, and not fancy masks, like not fancy smart masks, but they were wearing
Sure.
masks.
Sure.
And I can only imagine that now that like we've been through this, the world has been through this, that the number of people who are just going to be wearing masks out in public all the time is going to be, a lot more. So this is a market, and we haven't really seen the market taken. Anyway, I didn't mean to take over the whole show with this, but
no, this is an interesting topic.
but I would love to see somebody do a serious roundup of these. But by serious, sure, I also mean with testing. As far as I know, there's only one person that I know of that does serious mask testing as an individual, not as the government.
Sure.
And if you want to geek out over stuff, if you want to geek out, there's a guy named Aaron Collins on YouTube, and he is an aerosol scientist, and he has like a setup. He actually live does it to an extent, and he will like blast particles or whatever at masks and test them. And he has his spreadsheets that he shares with everybody of like the exact percentage of particles, 0.3 micron particles or small particles that got through. And he primarily tests KF94 and KN95 masks, which are the Korean and Chinese standards. And that's where I learned what masks to buy for myself and my son, who goes to school every day with one, is getting him a KF94 mask. But I emailed this guy, nice guy. I emailed him and I said, "Hey, would you like to test a razor mask?" And he said, he said, "I would love to do it, but I'm busy right now." So,
Gotcha.
Anyway,
I've got his YouTube channel up on the screen. He's got a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he does. He does. So anyway, that's a little tidbit for those of you who are interested in like mask science and like or really curious about like the best quality masks you can buy, that are not. He doesn't test like these weird smart masks, which is I would love to see, but he does test, like I said, a lot of brands of like imported masks to tell you which ones are good. And so if people are interested in getting masks for themselves, and they care about both comfort and safety, I would definitely recommend his channel.
Very cool. Well, that I always like it when we take little diversions like that, because that was a fascinating topic. But we do have a lot of news to cover, so let's get down to it. This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, a tablet, desperately seeking an Xbox, or new games and a whole lot more, you can get them at the Microsoft Store. And remember, the current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% on almost everything. And to browse the products and learn more about the discounts, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. Just as a note, a bit of a follow-up to a comment I made recently, using advice from the Piltch Point, the Hot Stocks app, I did manage to snag an Xbox X. It showed up today. We did an unboxing earlier. It is hooked up and operational already. So that is entirely because of advice from a Piltch Point episode. It definitely works. Huzzah. Anyway, that was a Microsoft Store reference because, yes, absolutely, it came from the Microsoft Store. Anyway, we've been talking about chip shortages, and this week, two major companies had interesting responses. The first is GM. We talked, 5 or 6 weeks ago that GM had announced that they were going to do a pretty heavy pause on production across North America. Canada, US, and Mexico were all affected. They shut down plants, some of them for a couple of days, some of them for a week or more. And apparently that shutdown worked because they're starting to catch up. In fact, as far as the trucks are concerned, they have caught up almost 25% of their backlog, and they plan to be done, getting 100% caught up by the end of the year, which cannot be entirely because of the shutdowns, because they were only paused for a couple of days, a week or 10 days at the very most. So they must be seeing some fixes in their chip availability, which hopefully we'll start to see that maybe start rolling out. We know Intel's getting into the game of custom manufacturing, and a couple of other organizations are as well. So maybe we can start seeing these chip shortages come down. I've been looking at the frequency that the consoles are starting to show back up in retailers, which is starting to happen faster between shipments than they were before, which is a pretty good sign. And internal to the company that I work for during the day, I've been keeping an eye on the stock that we've received of video cards and things, and they seem to be restocking faster too. So that's a good sign. However, not everybody is having a good response. Our friends at Raspberry Pi announced that the price of the Raspberry Pi 4 2 gig version is going from 35 to 45 as a temporary measure. Avram has talked about this before. One of their things is that they try real hard to make sure that things are price-wise in a straight line, and in fact you get more every generation for the same 30.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, also with inflation, the original Raspberry Pi was $35 in 2012, so that's 9 years ago, right? And $2012, $35 in 2012 is, I think, now $38, $40 today, or something. So, and yet they're giving you a better computer. So,
right.
I'm surprised actually that this is the change that they have officially announced in pricing, and not some of the other things like the Pi Zero, or some of the older models like the Pi 3B that people still buy, going up in price, at least as far as we know. Honestly, for most people, this is not a big deal because, first of all, you can get the 1 gigabyte model for $35.
Yes, it's come
so
back.
There's still a Pi 4. To be honest, it never went away. So Raspberry Pi doesn't. What?
They believe it did, but yes, the stock didn't really go away.
Making them. The Raspberry Pi has a really strong policy against end-of-lifing products, even ones that seemingly don't have a place in it, right? They really, just in case somebody was relying on that product to build something else. So
right.
I don't think they ever stopped manufacturing the 1 gigabyte. I think the 1 gigabyte has been available for sale. At one point, I actually saw Adafruit selling the 1 gigabyte models for $30, and I bought an extra one because I was like, hey, I'll save $5 and get the 1 gigabyte, because for a lot of projects, 1 gigabyte is okay.
Sure.
Right? 2 gigabytes is kind of in between there. Like, if you really want to use it as a computer, then you should probably spend the $55 and get the 4 gigabyte model. And if you want to spend, 1 gigabyte is probably more than okay for doing things, even like even machine learning applications. So 2 gigabytes, it's okay, but 4 is what you really need if you want to act as a PC, and 1 is probably fine. And then there's an 8 gigabyte model, which I don't know what you do with the other 4 gigabytes, because one thing that I have found in using Raspberry Pi quite a bit is that I have never really gone over 4 GB, even while, I mean, at least using it as a desktop, even while having a lot of programs open. Something about the Raspberry Pi OS, which is based on Debian Linux, or the programs within it, like Chromium, does not take up nearly memory as on my Windows PC. Like, I'm on a Windows PC and I'm really going up to 16 gig and up around 16 gig of memory with a few programs open and a bunch of tabs open. But on Raspberry Pi, granted, I don't use it to the same level of craziness because I don't use it as my everyday PC. But I've tried experiments where I had like 25 tabs open and I did not get anywhere close to like 4 GB of RAM being used. So,
Sure.
not sure why. It's very RAM efficient. Anyway, so you can
works
get the
out
one.
well.
My main point is that there's nothing wrong with getting the 1 GB. Also, we're talking about a mere $10.
Right.
In the scheme of things, you can spend $10 more if you want the 2 GB. But I think it's probably one or the other. If you're looking to buy a Raspberry Pi, either you want to use it for like robotics projects and things like that, and you don't really care about using it to surf the web and things like that,
Right.
1 GB will be fine. Or if you're really trying to use it like a computer, then spend $55 and get the 4 GB model, which, as far as I know, is not going up in price. So,
Doesn't
um,
sound like it.
so you know, it. I mean, I think this is newsworthy because Raspberry Pi has been very well shielded
Right.
from the shortage problems that have existed. But to me, it's like it's not much has happened. Now, I guess the question is, when we go and we look at inventory, are we going to, how easy is it to find a Raspberry Pi where you live,
Right.
where anyone lives? And that's always an open question. If you are in the United States and you want to buy one online, the best places to buy them are Adafruit or um, possibly Vilros.com or SparkFun.
Mm-hmm.
Those are decent places to get them at the MSRP. And actually, the best place, if you live near a micro center, there are only 21 of those in the United States. But if you happen to live near one, because you can't order this online from them, that is the best. I mean, you can get it without paying for shipping. You just pay the
Right.
$35 or whatever. So, but if you go to Amazon, Amazon is not. If you're buying on Amazon, it is not pay to buy a bare Raspberry Pi board on Amazon. Occasionally, you'll find someone selling one, but it's always way over the MSRP.
Yeah.
It's always like $60 for 2 GB. So what you do there is, if you are just getting started with Raspberry Pi and you just want all the accoutrements, like the power supply and a SD card and a case, you buy a starter kit.
Yeah. I was gonna
And
say the
it's
kits
not
can be
clear
pretty good priced.
right. It's not clear to me whether the starter kits are actually going up in price, and if they were, it's not clear whether they're going up, whether they'd be going up because of the cost of the Raspberry Pi itself or the cost of all the other things that come with it. So, um, what this does point to, of course, is that there is there are shortages this year. So you should start doing your holiday shopping now, and
For sure.
start doing your holiday shopping now.
This is the wrong
If
year to
if you
procrastinate.
and you can, well, unless you buy someone a digital gift, right? I'm sure
Sure.
sometime in December I'll do it. We'll do it at Piltch Point on digital gifts, and we'll tell everybody to buy Xbox Game Pass and
Right.
things like that, which are not a problem at all. But for physical gifts, if you want to get somebody a Raspberry Pi kit as a gift, which, if they don't have one, is a fantastic gift, then I wouldn't wait.
For sure. But what's interesting about all this is that, you know, like you said, Raspberry Pi seemed to be mostly unaffected by this until now, and GM was highly affected by this, seemingly until now. So maybe there's some prioritization that's going on, or so. I don't know what's happening, but obviously something's happening somewhere, and some of our shortages are starting to be cleared up, while others seem to be just getting started. Raspberry Pi says that they expect this issue to last through most of next year. But GM believes that they'll have all of their trucks and some of their cars cleared out of backlog entirely before 2022 starts. So it's a little bit of a Wild West situation. We don't entirely know what's happening, seemingly from one minute to the next, but it's an important story, and we'll keep you updated on it. This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices, and you can get a special price and a 30-day money-back guarantee right now by going to piltchpoint.live/PureVPN. All right, so we started the show talking about new product launch. We talked last week about several new product launches, and because it's Techtober, we've got another one, right?
Yes.
I'm sticking with that name, by the way.
Techtober. Well, we still have another few days left in the month. So
we do.
So we talked before the show about Razer coming out with something because that was pretty cool. Now let's talk about another company who has the same colors as Razer, NVIDIA. So NVIDIA has come out with a new tier for its GeForce Now streaming service. So I believe we've talked about GeForce Now in the past. It's been quite a while since the service actually launched. GeForce Now is NVIDIA's cloud gaming service. It entered beta in 2015, and there were a lot of people in the free beta, but it actually went live for paid memberships in 2020. And now the company is adding an RTX 3080 tier, which means that if you don't have an RTX 3080 in your computer, you can effectively rent one to play in the cloud. So, but there's a lot of caveats to that. So, first of all, GeForce Now works a little bit differently than some other services in that it is a PC gaming service, but you log in on your computer and you can run it from a PC, a Windows PC, a Mac, a phone, a set-top box like the NVIDIA Shield, even from a browser. So you could play it on a Chromebook. The company recommends that you have at least a 5 gigahertz wireless connection or gigabit Ethernet for good connection. And what you can do then is you log in and you can play games that you own that are installed in the cloud. But there are several hundred games that are supported, but there's a lot of games that are not supported. And if it's not supported, you can't play it. And of course, you have to own the game. So, and it supports games that are available in a variety of launchers. So it supports some games that launch through Steam, some that launch through the Epic Game Store or through Good Old Games. But what it does not support is Microsoft does not, I think, sees GeForce Now as a competitor. so you can't play Minecraft. And I don't know if you can play any other Microsoft games. So, but there are several hundred games on the list, and you can play them, and you can play them with a 3080 now if you sign up for this membership. So the cost is, right now they're selling these in 6-month increments. So there's 3 tiers. There's the free tier. The free tier does not give you a 3080 card. I don't think they guarantee what kind of card you're getting. And you
Seem like it, doesn't it? All right.
yeah.
Let's go back to the beginning of the free tier.
Okay, right. So there's 3 tiers. There's a free tier, which gives you up to an hour of gameplay continuously until you get kicked off. There's no guarantee about what card you're getting, but you're definitely not getting a 3080 card, and you can play at 720p. Then um, there is the priority tier, which is $50 for 6 months. So you do the math, that comes out to what, $8 and something per month. And you can play games with ray tracing on, but not on I think it's a 2080, not a 3080. And you get priority access, which means if free people who are on the free tier are trying to log in and you're trying to log in and there's a limited number of logins, you will get in above them, and you can play for up to 6 hours. And it says that you can play games on the priority tier at 1080p 60 fps. Now this new tier that's coming along, the RTX 3080 tier, $99 for 6 months, so $16 and something cents per month, gives you a 3080 card in your remote, the machine you're logging onto. You can play for up to 8 hours at a time, and you can play at up to 1440p 120 frames per second. And if you have a Shield TV, only if you have a Shield TV, you can actually play games in 4K HDR. Although the 4K HDR, if you play in 4K HDR, I think you get only 60 FPS, but you're still getting 4K HDR, which is a lot. So those are the new plans. Now, one thing that's really interesting is that right now you can pre-order the 3080 plan. In other words, you can't get it yet, and you'll have to already be a priority member or a founder. To founders, I guess, or people who signed up early before while the service was still in beta, to order the 3080 service. And there's going to be limited quantities of it, so I guess as many as they feel the service can handle at this point. So the interesting thing, though, is the majority. We got to talk to some folks from NVIDIA while while learning about this, and what they said is that the average gaming session is an hour right now, and that most of people who are using the service are not folks who have like a last gen graphics card and want a newer graphics card. They're people who are on integrated graphics. They're using a laptop that has integrated graphics. So how many people are going to say, I really need to take this up to the next level and get 3080 performance, is an interesting question. And this provides an interesting backdrop for all the stories about shortages that are going on, because here's some cards that are, or chips anyway. I don't think they're going to, I think they're going to some kind of what they call GeForce Now super pods, which are giant servers that are capable of 39,200 teraflops of processing and have 11 million CUDA cores. So clearly it's not like you're getting a regular PC that's sitting on a shelf. It's a data center with a giant PC, and you're getting a 3080 chip within it. but they say you won't be sharing it with anyone while you're on. So, each user will have access to just one. So, it's interesting. Of course, the big limitation is, do they have the games that you want to play?
Right.
Because they have a list on NVIDIA has a list online of all the games they support, and I think there's actually about 900 games on here. But while I was looking through, I didn't really find a lot that I really wanted to play. So, my son and I love playing Minecraft and Minecraft Dungeons. Don't have it on here. We like the Lego games. I think one Lego game. So but on the other hand, they have Cyberpunk 2077. They've got a bunch of Battlefield games. So there's, depending on what you want to play, granted, you have to have bought the game. So there's some degree of investment for folks who are not PC gamers right now. Let's say you don't own a gaming PC and you say, I want to get into PC gaming, and I've got a lightweight laptop and I just want to play PC games on it. Great. You're going to have to pay for GeForce Now, and then you're going to have to buy games. Although there are some free to play games as well. We should mention, so it's not, if a game was free to play in real life, I mean, not as GeForce Now, then I think it's pretty free to play. It's free to play on there. So, it's interesting. The other thing that they are doing that I believe applies to at least the top two tiers is that they are implementing an interesting form of adaptive sync to the cloud. So, for folks who don't know, adaptive sync is FreeSync or G-Sync usually, and that is usually on a person's computer. That usually takes place if your monitor doesn't have to be FreeSync or G-Sync, because if you have a 60 hertz monitor, it's going to give you the game. It's going to try to give you the game at 60 frames per second. I'm not sure if you have to do that, or if it's just a feature you can enable, but enable or disable. But supposedly it's going to actually adapt to what it knows you have. So the cloud is only going to send you as much as your monitor can handle. Instead of having your monitor perhaps drop down or up, like in offline FreeSync and adaptive sync, your monitor does the adjustment, and that means your monitor has to be smart. Here, all the smarts are going to happen in the cloud, which is interesting. But so it'll be interesting to see what that does. Another thing that is important to note, you and I are always talking about bandwidth caps. So any guesses to how many megabits per second playing on the RTX 3080 tier is going to require?
I'm terrified to find out, because I
so
bet
they
it's a ton.
they say, and I really actually want to test this. So I admit to not having tested any of this yet. This is just new stuff. 25. They said about 25 FPS, 25 megabit per second for playing at two. So they claim, like I said, 2K, otherwise known as 1440p at 120 frames a second. So they claim that that will be 25 megabits per second. But if you have the Shield with the 4K HDR mode, that's going to be more. That could be quite a bit more. Now, for all of the GeForce Nows, no matter what tier you're in, they recommend that your home internet connection be at least 35 megabit per second overall, which is, I don't think, hard to meet, because most of the minimum plans are at least 35 or 50 now on most ISPs. But what does that mean in terms of bandwidth caps? I don't know. I haven't done the math. How many hours a day could you play before you hit your bandwidth cap?
I'm doing math right now. I apologize.
Sorry,
I have
25 megabit per second is how much per hour? I do you have to we have to
25.
convert megabits to gigabytes, right? Because the caps are
So
measured in gigabytes.
so that's 3.125 megabytes per second times 60 seconds. So per minute, it's 187 and a half. It is 11,250 per hour. Megabytes.
So that's a gigabyte.
11.
So that is 11,000 gigabytes.
That's 11 gig per hour.
11 gig per hour. Okay, so 11 gigs per hour. And what is for those who have data caps, what is a typical data cap?
Let me
150, I think.
Let's do a search in our news for.
I think it's one
data cap.
I think
Comcast's is 1.25 terabytes. Yeah. So it's 1.25 terabytes, which is up from the 1 terabyte that they offered before. So that means
maybe it's not that bad. I mean,
that means that you could play for about 100 hours a month and do nothing else online.
Right. Now, now, of course, the final word on all of this, I mean, not that's the final word, but my final word on all of this for today, I guess, is like, but if you were that serious of a gamer that you were going to play 100 hours a month, you probably wouldn't be on this plan, because even though like you're getting an RTX 3080, and so for the cost of the plan, the cost of it, $99 for 6 months is really not bad at all. But that depends. Are you going to use it like a serious PC gamer who's playing several hours every day, most days? Or are you going to occasionally dabble in playing a PC game? If you are dabbling, it might not be worth it. And if you have a data cap, you can't afford to do anything but dabble. But on the other hand, if you're the person who plays 100 hours a month at this point, you probably are a person who has a gaming PC. And if you have a gaming PC that is even a generation or two behind, you probably still won't want to be bothered with the cloud gaming. It seems that they're primarily getting people who have no gaming PC, and this is their gaming PC. So it's interesting, because I don't know, are they going to attract people who say, oh, I've got like, I am a PC gamer, I've got like a GTX 1660 or something, but wow, I'd really love to be able to play better games, or play with better settings, so I'm going to pay $99 for 6 months. Or are those folks going to say, you know what, I don't want to deal with cloud gaming, I'll just go with lower settings? So it seems like, from what they said, the majority of their users are people who have no gaming PC and no serious gaming PC in their house. So I don't know. This seems like it could, if this worked really well, I could see, and it had support for any game you wanted, I could see more people saying, hey, wow, what a good deal. This is much cheaper than buying a graphics card. much. But at the same time, I think we still aren't seeing from cloud gaming a lot of, I don't know, even in this difficult chip environment, a lot of cannibalization of people saying, I want to, buy cloud gaming instead of owning a PC.
Yeah, agreed. It doesn't. It. This seems like this is serving another market, giving the ability to bring 3080 capabilities to people who aren't interested in a 3080 or don't have an all the time need for one.
Right. So it's not really clear whether this is going to be a big hit for them, because if you're really serious about your gaming, it seems like you're going to want to buy your own RTX 3080
Right.
anyway, and that this is not going to satiate you or keep you held over for if you're a serious PC gamer.
Right.
But who knows? We will be doing some testing on it and finding out how it performs. But I think the biggest issue is what games can you play, and if your game is in the list, great. But if it's not, then it's a problem. Anyway, you can learn more about this by going to tomshardware.com, where we have an article about the announcement, and at some point, hopefully soon, we'll also be able to test it and tell you how it performed for us.
Very cool. Sounds interesting. Obviously, one of the things that I am going to be desperate to hear about will be the actual real world data usage, because you didn't even have to say it. As soon as you started talking data usage, I had the calculator open.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure it out right away.
It could be worse, but I mean, as we said before, this is not the data caps are getting more and more insidious every day, because people also are doing a lot of cord cutting and watching video at 4K. So this is just one more drop.
I think it's a problem that needs to be solved one way or another, because, like you said, we've talked several times. More and more of our lives are being spent online, doing things, working. Work from home is not going anywhere for a lot of people. So this is, and it tends to be in markets where Comcast is heavily favored. Well, not favored, but certainly heavily used. Most hated company in America, trading off with EA every year. So not most favored, but certainly most used. So there's going to be a challenge to this at some point, because more and more things are using more and more bandwidth. I mean, we calculated how much just this show takes in bandwidth, and thank goodness I'm not in a Comcast market, because I'd be in a ton of trouble. So, as always, Avram, appreciate this. Like I told you before we got started, I hadn't even heard of this. So that is how far behind on this topic I was. I didn't even know it happened. So I always appreciate you bringing new stuff to my attention and to the audiences, and I look forward to what we talk about next. This week's Extra Life on F5 Live is proudly powered by Loot Crate. Whether you're a gamer, anime fan, or pop culture aficionado, Loot Crate has got a crate for you. They curate a bundle of collectibles, apparel, and figures that you can't get anywhere else. Crates get delivered to your door. It's like getting an awesome birthday present from yourself every month. And to learn more about the crates that are available, you can go to f5live.tv/lootcrate. Now that has happened, we're going to have to pause for a second. Live viewers, you're getting a real inside baseball look at the show tonight. Oh boy, let's hope that first half didn't completely. Oh, thank goodness. Today's the 25th, right? Yes. Excellent. All right. Anyway, welcome to the show, live viewers, and our our crazy technical issues. Anyway, let's start from there, shall we? All right, we just talked about GeForce Now, and now we have an interesting, semi-related and completely different topic, and that is Google Stadia. We know that Google has had difficulties with getting adoption on Google Stadia for one reason or another. Either consumers just don't care about what Google's up to. We know that the reviews were mixed early on, that the capabilities were iffy, the controller was horrible, and sometimes it's hard to get away from that, icky taste in your mouth once it's there. Whatever the reason, earlier this year, Google had announced that some changes were coming. First, they nixed their first-party game studio before the first game was ever finished. And then about a week later, they said that they had some business model changes that they were considering. And one of them was licensing the technology and becoming a white label distribution platform for others. And this week, we see the first known fruit of that new business model, and it comes in a weird place. It comes from AT&T, who is offering their wireless subscribers the ability to play Batman Arkham Knight. Now, let's talk about this a little bit. You have to be an AT&T wireless subscriber to get this game for free, but you cannot play it on wireless. You have to play it on a desktop. It's one of the games from Stadia that will only work on a desktop. And so, what? The tie-in doesn't make a ton of sense to me, except for the fact that AT&T bought Time Warner, and that became Warner Media. Warner Media owns DC Comics. Obviously, DC Comics owns Batman, which brings us Batman Arkham Knight. That's a really long chain of events, but as we talked about last week, DC's got a lot of stuff coming, including 2 new games in the DC franchise. Maybe this is AT&T hyping up their stuff ahead of the next releases. I don't know what's going on here, Avram.
I mean, the most important thing you need to know about Google Stadia is that right now, if you sign up for Google Stadia, you can play Paw Patrol Mighty Pup Save Adventure Bay for free.
You know what? How can you pass it up?
How will the AT&T version of it give you all of the things that Stadia does, or only that Batman game?
Only that Batman game, running entirely on the Stadia infrastructure.
Will you know that it's Stadia if you haven't watched our show?
No. So nowhere is it labeled. Google is not mentioned anywhere, though it has been confirmed with AT&T. AT&T has said in a couple of statements that yes, this is powered by Stadia. No, we're not talking about it, because it is a true white label. It is just like going to the grocery store and buying the Publix brand, pasta sauce, and knowing that somebody else made it.
So are you going to be able to play any other games on it? I mean, is AT&T going to have a list of games?
Not right now. It is white label entirely for this one title.
You have to really want to play that Batman game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
really want to play that.
It's all so strange. Like, I had expected with something like this that a company like maybe Ubisoft, bad example because they have a really strong partnership with GeForce Now, but let's say Ubisoft, because they're a smaller studio, they're not EA, they're not Activision. Maybe they contract with Google to make whatever they call their launcher now. It used to have a name and now it doesn't. It doesn't matter. Through their launcher that you could cloud stream, and they wouldn't have to build any of that infrastructure. That is how I suspected that this would be used. This use is very weird to me.
Money, I guess. I mean, companies are constantly looking, wireless companies are constantly looking for that one little extra thing that they can give you to as an incentive to switch,
T-Mobile
right?
Tuesdays.
Once once they have you, they don't care about you anymore, but but they look for that one, that one little incentive. So if a Batman game gets them a few people, if I don't know, T-Mobile was giving away, I think, for a while, free Apple TV Plus subscriptions.
Yeah.
Um, but as an existing customer, I couldn't get it. So, um,
Oh.
so I think some existing customers can get it if you have a more expensive plan or something. It
Gotcha.
was the same thing with like the Netflix thing, where for a while, I don't know if they're still doing it. For a while, they were giving you free Netflix,
Yeah.
but but it turned out that if I wanted to get the plan that had free Netflix, I'd have to spend like another $30 a month for the same
Uh-huh.
plan. So it's
Yeah.
just cheaper to buy Netflix, right? So
Sure. And
anyway,
then Sprint was doing the free Hulu, but it was the ad-supported Hulu, and you couldn't pay the difference to upgrade. So
right. So these are
I
all like
I
these
gave
are all
mine to my parents.
little
It's like,
gimmicks.
here you go. Take my Hulu
These
subscription.
are all little gimmicks that they
Yeah.
have to get you to sign up for things. Um, you know,
Maybe this is
you
a
can,
test, right? Maybe this is a
yeah.
test. Maybe the Warner Brothers uh, game studios, family of game studios, maybe they're looking at doing a whole my idea, right? Maybe because Warner Brothers is another small collection of studios. Maybe they're looking at doing a completely Warner Brothers branded uh, game streaming service that's actually Google Stadia powered. Maybe this is just a test to see how it works. I hadn't
Yeah,
considered
I
that until
mean,
just now.
yeah, I mean that's possible. I mean, they have all these other Batman games, right? Wasn't that Arkham Knight's a game that's coming out that we
Mm-hmm.
were talking about the other day?
Yeah.
So,
Well, Arkham Knight is the one. Yeah, Arkham Knight is the one that we're talking about. Uh, but yeah,
oh, I'm
they've got.
sorry. So what?
Yeah,
They have other games coming.
last week they had uh, two ti- two new Batman titles that were coming. Let me get down to the games. Gotham Knights and something else.
Oh, am I confusing Gotham Knights and Arkham Knights?
Yes.
Or are they the same thing? Okay.
No, yeah. Well, that's absolutely what happened. The titles are too close. Batman Arkham Knights, and the new one is Gotham Knights, which is the one
Oh, okay.
that's wider.
There's
But they've also got
there's
the
a lot of
Suicide.
knights.
They've also got the Suicide Squad game coming. So they've got a lot of games coming up
Yeah.
from the DC brand. I think it's and obviously there's a whole backlog of Batman games and DC games as well. Maybe they're trying to put together a DC or a Warner Brothers game streaming service, and this is their first test at it. It'd be interesting.
I don't care if it doesn't have farming simulator and bus simulator. I don't want to sign up.
I get
The
so many press emails from them.
Yes, that's why I mention it. There's some company that comes out with all, I forget the name of it, that comes out with all these simulator games, and I just noticed that Stadia also has farming simulator. Um, so, uh, which actually strikes me as a great idea because we don't need to go off on this tangent, but it actually strikes me as a great idea because a lot of people, they have like a trucking simulator and a bus driving simulator and a farming simulator. And when I first saw these, I was like, man, what a weird idea for a game. And then I just thought about it from that. I was like, but if the goal of your game is to do something that you will never get to do in real life
Sure.
in a very realistic way, to like try someone else's job for a while, hey, that's actually pretty brilliant. So,
See, it's that really realistic way that ended it for me because I was thinking Crazy Taxi.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, how seriously do you want to take your farming anyway?
Right.
So, yeah,
I
I
wasn't
mean,
even
sure.
interested in Farmville, so, and that was nothing like
Yeah.
farming.
Well, right. So if you really take it, if you've played Farmville and you said, what if I did this in a much more serious way? Um,
What if I actually had to get
but
into a virtual tractor to get from thing to thing instead of just clicking?
yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
better.
The one, like the bus simulator one sounded interesting to me because it sort of sounds like flight simulator, but like,
Okay.
instead of flying to different cities, you're driving around them. Um, you
Takes
know,
a lot
if I
longer.
had time, yeah. But what if it's a cool looking place?
Sure.
Enjoy the scenery. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I think AT&T is dipping its toe in the water here to see whether this is worth its time. Um, it could be something where they have a bunch of different titles, and either they can upsell people on access to this store,
Right.
or they can use it as incentive for people to sign up, because
Agreed.
AT&T is not the hippest. I don't think is seen by anybody as like the hippest carrier. Like Verizon often wins the awards for having good service, and T-Mobile is cheaper. So where does that leave AT&T?
They're the party service. But yeah, AT&T is kind of left out in the cold usually. So, they were given HBO for a while depending on your plan. They were doing all kinds of, direct TV. Now, Go, whichever one it was. Oh god, so many services that they've had, and they don't even own DirecTV anymore. But they were doing that for a while. Always trying stuff. Maybe not ever succeeding with it. Maybe that's the problem. But we'll see what happens here. This week's news from the tubes and F5 Live is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malware Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, and it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, rootkits, bots, and a whole lot more. And you can use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. To learn more and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. So, Google again. Let's talk Google again. Privacy has been a big topic for us for the last couple of years, partially because for a while it wasn't a big topic in the general culture. And so, we kind of wanted to bring that back. A number of high-profile hacks, all of the stuff happening over at Facebook, worries about, Google tracking cookies. They have all brought privacy and security back into the forefront. And out of that has come things like the Brave browser, which we've talked about on the show before in the past. The Brave browser is this high privacy focused product, but their default search engine in most of the world was Google. And a lot of people who are looking for privacy aren't fans of Google as a company, and Google search in particular. So a lot of people were switching over to something like DuckDuckGo, which we did a Piltch point on a couple years ago. Well, the company has actually got their own search provider now, and in the latest release of their browser, 1.31 for desktop and Android and 1.32 for iOS, the default search engine has been changed in most of the world to Brave's search, which obviously makes sense if you're putting this all together. It makes sense to default it. Of course, if you want to switch to something else, DuckDuckGo or Google or Bing or whatever you want to switch to, you can still change your search engine just like you can in Edge or Google or Safari or whatever. With this comes what they call the Web Discovery Project. I've started a bit of a dive into it because I'm really interested in what they're up to here. It's a tool to improve the Brave search while still maintaining user anonymity. It's completely opt-in, and it's designed, obviously, to protect privacy because that's what the company's all about. The contributed data isn't like reverse engineerable to a person or a device. It can't be connected together to create a profile about a user. Obviously, this is coming at a time when big tech is kind of a bad word. You hear all political affiliations talking about big tech, and very few of them speak of it highly. So this is an interesting and kind of a smart time for this to come out. I'm really interested in the web discovery project. I'm not far into my dive on how it works. I do know that for something to be included in index, it has to be highly visited, which is interesting. But there's a whole like submission process that's very different than Google or Bing. It's interesting, but Avram, what do you think?
So I'm looking at the Brave search, and I'm trying to see how Tom's Hardware comes up on some of the search terms that we target.
Sure.
And our rankings seem pretty consistent with what they are on Google.
Okay.
So I'm kind of curious how where the rankings come from, where they get this information.
Yeah.
How they're spidering.
Yeah. So it has a lot to do with, and that's what that web discovery project is all about. I don't have as much information on it as I would like. It's a very complicated system that I'm trying to understand.
I can tell you this: we haven't optimized for it. We haven't optimized for the web discovery project. I don't think anyone in our company has submitted anything to it. Perhaps we should have.
Part of it comes. Part of it comes from people who are using the browser, and that's why they were talking about all the anonymity stuff. They are looking at browsing history, but without tracking who it's attached to. If you opt in to help improve search. Now, I'll tell you that searching for PLUGHITZ Live, our top result obviously is our homepage. The branding is incorrect, and the title still says CES 2020. So they haven't hit us in a while, because it stopped saying that, like January 11th of 2020. But that's okay. LinkedIn has the updated branding. Our Twitter doesn't. Anyway, it is interesting. And again, we haven't optimized for anything either, because I'm still just trying to understand how it works. I have, however, seen traffic referring in from Brave. So that's interesting.
I mean, I think it would be good if the industry standardized on a Google alternative. I know Microsoft would like it to be Bing, but Bing unfortunately suffers for the same problems that Edge and IE have suffered from, which is being tragically uncool, even when it does provide a decent service. So I don't know. Maybe the answer is DuckDuckGo. Brave trying to start its own engine. I don't know. I think if you were to have something that people would take seriously, it couldn't be just tied to a product like that. So I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I think I think there's absolutely a market for an alternative, for a Google alternative. That's for sure.
Absolutely. There is definitely a market for it. Everybody has seemingly tried, and nobody seems to be able to chisel away. You know, Microsoft had gotten up to like the 13% mark at one point, but I think they're back down to about the 4.5% mark today. They had when they were the default search on iPhone, I think is when they managed to get themselves up there pretty high. But that hasn't been for a couple of years. And as soon as that went away, they plummeted again.
Being the default search definitely helps you a lot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my mother, like every 2 weeks, she has some type of antivirus on her computer. I think it's McAfee, that is constantly changing her default search to Yahoo. I go and I change it back, and it changes it back to Yahoo again.
Yeah.
So it's so yes, being the default really helps you.
Yeah, especially on something like the iPhone.
Yeah.
So let's see. Your personal results start at LinkedIn, and then your profile on Tom's Hardware. That's good. Your Twitter, your Muck Rack, your Facebook, and then your profile from Laptop Mag. So they do recognize that Tom's
That's
Hardware right now is a higher, more important rank.
That's good. That's good. I'm pleased with those results.
So after Laptop Mag comes Business Insider, and then the Wikipedia page for Tom's Hardware.
That's pretty good. All right. Well, there you go. Everything you need to know about me, you can get by searching. You get. Yeah, I think it says so somewhere on there. Anyway, yes, one of my few places where I'm famous. I have I don't have a page on Wikipedia. I'm just mentioned on somebody's page. I'm mentioned on Tom's Hardware's page.
But anyway, it's interesting. I'm definitely going to play around with it. I've been talking to our marketing guys. Last week, one of our conversations was the changes to Google mobile search. This week, one of our conversations is going to be what we know about Brave, which is one of the reasons I'm doing a lot of research. It's really interesting. It's quick, which I like. So, I don't know. I'm going to experiment with it. I did a deep dive into DuckDuckGo a while back. Obviously, I've done a deep dive into Bing and Google. So I'm always interested in knowing how the data collection for these things works. And I will continue on this one. I don't know when I will understand it. Hopefully soon. This week's DRM Not Included on F5 Live is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. You know you get free shipping, but you get a whole lot more, including free music with Amazon Prime Music, free TV, movies, and documentaries with Amazon Prime Video, free video games, and a free Twitch subscription to help the Twitch subscriber of your choice with Amazon Prime Gaming, and a whole lot more. We've got quick links to these features and more, because sometimes they can be a challenge to find. We've got a free 30-day trial, the ability to give it as a gift, and more, all by going to f5live.tv/prime. So over the last couple of years, we have talked a number of times about some of the oddities happening with cord cutting. We mentioned cord cutting a little while ago with, bandwidth caps and things like that. But one of the things that's been a challenge has been local content. We've seen some services. We remember Aereo and their lawsuit that took them all the way to the Supreme Court, where they lost and the company shut down. Then following them, Locast thought that they had a great new approach to avoid getting attacked by the networks, and they were wrong, and they are currently shut down. But rather than trying to bob and weave and get around copyright law, Amazon, through their Amazon News on Fire TV, has gone directly to the source, which, of course, they've gone directly to the source and started making relationships. Their Amazon News local service launched last year with 12 markets. Obviously, with 12 markets, it was a pilot. It was a test to see if people cared, and apparently they did. Earlier this year, they added like 76 more cities, I think, bringing it to 88. Then somewhere in the middle of the year, they added more cities, and now they're adding another 158, bringing the total to 259 cities across the United States. It is completely free. If you have a Fire TV, the app is already installed. It's the Amazon News app. There's a local tab. It will locate you based on your IP address. Whether that be real or pure VPN is not up to me. It will determine what your local area is and show you your local stations. If you've got more than one, you can choose which ones to include. I will tell you, you do not have more than one. There are very few cities that have more than one, and very few cities that have one that matters in any meaningful way. Scottsbluff, NE, New England? That's not a place.
Nebraska.
Yep, because it's both caps. Thank you. I see it. I even wrote the word Nebraska 3 words later. So thank you. They have their NBC affiliate available, but if you're here in Tampa, what you get is WMOR, which is, below the CW and below even the old UPN. It is the remains of what was the WB. All the things
but you're only
that the CW.
You're not getting their programming, right? You're just getting the news the news content, right?
Right, but if you look at like, what the WB is without any of the Warner Brothers stuff that went over to the CW, that's what WMOR is here. So it's not exciting. Their news is. It's like the leftovers from our NBC affiliate. It's real weird the way it works.
It's so. In other words, you're not the top talent.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's definitely the second tier. But this is still essentially a pilot program, right? So we've got one network from every city. Mostly, I think there were about 12 or 13 that had more than one, but you've got maybe one network with news available from every city. Obviously, that's still a pilot program. They're trying to get to scale so they can start having conversations with the other affiliates, is my guess. That's what I would do. I would try to get to scale as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? You're not available. That's always a good selling point.
Who's making money off of this? Like, how are they, when they show the news, do they show the whole 11 o'clock news end to end? Do they show it in clips? And is there advertising?
So our WMOR has a like .2 that is like an all the time news, I think. So maybe it's that. I don't know for sure. I don't have direct access to a Fire TV right now, but I'm definitely going to give it a shot and see what comes up. I've sent Michelle off to give it a shot and see what comes up, because I know she has one at home to do some experimenting. I also want to experiment and throw pure VPN behind it and see if we can get something from California to auto select for us. I've got some tests I want to do on this to see, how different the content is from city to city, right? Is it only maybe in Tampa, maybe it's only the 3 broadcasts a day that are news from WMOR, or is it the 24-hour .2? And if in LA is it something else? You know what I mean? So I'm definitely interested in seeing how this works. I'm going to run some tests. I have no idea how it works, but the fact that they've got 259 US cities signed up and Amazon is making it available to all of their Fire TV subscribers for free, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, if you're running one of those stations, it's distribution for you.
Right. It's more eyes that are completely countable, which was one of the biggest problems with both Lowcast and Aereo, is those views weren't countable. These are. They can use it to generate, ad dollars, and maybe there's a particular kickback, revenue share with Amazon on it. I don't know. But that would be a pretty solid business model for Amazon.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting idea. It's definitely filling a need that we have proven time and again exists, right? Aereo and Lowcast proved that this was a need that needed to be filled.
But that's the interesting question. What's the need that those were filling?
Right.
Were those filling the need for local news, or were those filling the need for people to get free television, to get online access to
local sports?
Yeah, sports.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Are people that excited about watching the local 5 o'clock and 11 o'clock news? I mean, granted, there isn't a lot of great local coverage out there. If you don't watch them, I mean, there's Patch, and you find a local newspaper. So, I mean, there's not, to be fair, there's less and less local news available to people as more and more local news outlets, local newspapers have gotten shut down or have been conglomerated to where the majority of the stories are national stories, and then there's a couple of local ones thrown in. So, I get that there's some desire for local news, but I don't think that's what people were signing up for with Aereo. I think they wanted to watch CBS, and you can get cable or you can get an antenna, but it's convenient to watch things online. So that's how I wanted it. That was a method for them to watch whatever shows they wanted to watch on CBS, NBC, Fox, ABC, or CW.
But maybe, and just like with AT&T, maybe this is the beginning of a wider test, something more interesting that they're working on, but starting with news. There's no telling. With Amazon, there's never any telling what they're planning or what they're up to. So this could expand way beyond news stuff. It'll be really interesting to see how this goes, because there are some notable markets missing New York from the list. So I found that fascinating. So obviously they're not done. There's no way they're going to consider themselves done if New York is missing from this list. So we'll see. We'll see what comes of it. We're going to do some tests to see, what content is available and how it varies from market to market, coming up here soon, because it is interesting, and obviously Amazon is dedicated to it. Otherwise, they would not be expanding to this many cities this quickly. There's no way that this isn't something they're currently dedicated to. So we'll see. Well, that is our show. Thank you to those of you who joined us live. We know it's been weird this month because you never know when we're going to go live, but that's behind us. We're back to Sunday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern. This coming Sunday, back to normal. Hooray. Unless that's not Halloween, is it? I don't know when
it is, but it is Halloween.
Okay.
But that's fine with me unless you're doing something. I mean,
I'm not. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to screw with family stuff.
not at the time that we start.
Okay, perfect. Then back to normal next week.
We're not trick-or-treating at 9 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe we'll have some cobwebs in the graphics or something next week.
Yeah.
We'll see what comes of it.
I mean, what I'd like to do is take my have my RGB goggles set up so that I can wear them in the show, because these are actually going to have RGB in them. So see if I can have that for next show.
That would be fun. Maybe I can do some stuff on the wall behind me. Anyway, so next week, Halloween, we'll be back to normal, and then back to normal until we hit the weirdness that is the end of the year. So I guess with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we'll see you back next week. Ciao.